of, we need some more creativity in the game, or we want Latino kids who, have grown up in the suburbs, so they're Latino, but they're not playing the kind of Latin street game that would really revitalize U.S. soccer. We're not touching the inner cities. I think Sporting's trying to here, I'm talking about Sporting a little bit. They're trying to reach out to the inner city kids with futsal courts and things like that. So they're not just getting the kids from the suburbs with the pay to play. Because you look at the rest of the world, soccer is not a rich kid's sport in the rest of the world.
No,
soccer is the way in the rest of the world. And guys like PK, whose family is wealthy and well connected in Catalan politics, are a rarity. You're getting the kids. You look at Rooney. Rooney was making do with a makeshift ball. That he was out there on his own, just kicking it off a wall and visualizing things over and over and over again. We need a revitalization of the game, and it's going to have to come from these little towns. It's going to have to come from the inner cities. It's going to have to come from players who are not getting that academy experience right now.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. I mean, if you look at Germany, you got
absolutely
a ton of Turks. Switzerland got all these, the Albanian, Kosovo region. France from all the, the African players that migrate. The United States, you don't get that sense. Everybody seems to be, your stereotypical American born, Clint Dempsey born in Texas, whatever. So, but Steve, I just want to wrap it up. I know the game's about to start. Any chance that Vermes takes the job with U.S. Soccer?
If they asked him, he would take it as a good soldier. I don't know how. I think he would chafe at it because Vermes likes control. He likes to control development from the youth level on up. And he wouldn't have that with U.S. Soccer. He'd have to deal with the talent pool that he was given, getting the minutes they were getting at the other clubs with the fitness demands of other clubs. It would really drive him a little nuts, I think. But I think he would take it as a good soldier because he's very proud to be a U.S. international. He's a U.S. Soccer Hall of Famer. And I think he would do it for his country, but I would think he would also chafe at the restrictions.
Absolutely, Steve. Well, Steve, we want to thank you for our insight. And like we did last time, we want to give you the ability to plug yourself on the show. So it's our shameless plug. Where can we find all your work, and where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter, just at Steve Brisendine, my name. And you can find my work on MLSsoccer.com. Look for material out of the Houston Sporting game tonight, and let me know what you think.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Steve. Talk to you down the road.
All right. Thanks very much.
Oh, it's always good to talk to Steve, Arman. Love it.
Yeah, and you could hear the KC atmosphere in the background.
It's absolutely electric. But we're going to continue our U.S. talk here.
Yes, Steven. We have another guest coming on.
Yes.
Franco Panizo, editor at MLSsoccer.com and writer at AmericanSoccerNow. Franco, how are you doing today? I know you had some editing to do, so just how are you doing? How's everything going?
Everything's going well, man. Soccer keeps going, so it's good. Even if this week has been pretty bad for most people.
Side note, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I was just looking at this week as a whole. When it comes to my soccer clubs, I've taken L after L after L after L. It's been brutal. But what's your take on this U.S. soccer debacle? I mean, you got, Alexi Lawless, Taylor Twellman. Everybody seems to have an opinion. Why? Go ahead and put yours out there for us.
It's pretty much the one that most people share. It's a nightmare. It's a travesty. It's an epic failure on U.S. national team's part and U.S. soccer's part. The U.S. should not be missing the World Cup next summer. CONCACAF is designed, the qualifying campaign is designed for the U.S. and Mexico with all the ratings that they bring and all that for FIFA. It's designed for them to make it. And the fact that the U.S. finished 5th place out of 6 teams just shows how poor they were throughout the entire campaign. Obviously this last game against Trinidad and Tobago was really an eye-opening defeat, and it was a poor performance overall from the U.S. in that game, especially given what was on the line. But overall, the U.S. was just terrible in the past year in this qualifying campaign, and they don't deserve to be in Russia based on the way they've played.
Oh, they absolutely don't deserve.
Yeah,
Arman?
they really don't. I mean, I was watching that Trinidad game, and I mean, you watched it, you just got sense that just something was off, and I feel like this has kind of been culminating a little bit. I mean, we heard, from Jermaine Jones what his opinion was on players not challenging themselves by not going overseas and coming to MLS, and I mean, I feel like I kind of agree with that, but I don't think MLS is to blame. Franco, I know you heard the comments from Jermaine Jones. What'd you make of what he said?
His rant was pretty spot on. What he said is, I don't think you can really dispute that. Players that have come here at younger ages. He came here as well to MLS and after the 2014 World Cup. But he had already made his career. He was on the down years of his career. Right. And his whole point was that players that are young that are still either before or at their prime need to try to test themselves at the highest level. And not stick around in MLS just because it's comfortable or it's easier or it's a faster path to finding minutes, or because obviously you're not going to test yourself at the highest level in MLS. There's nothing wrong with saying that MLS is not at the highest level at its current stage. The highest level and anywhere else in the world, the aspiration is. You start your career and then eventually you want to be playing in Europe, whether it's in Europa League Champions League, you want to test yourself out in Europe.
Sure.
That's the ultimate goal for almost anyone that's growing up playing soccer or that has dreams of playing soccer professionally. So it's not a slight to MLS to say that it's not the highest level of soccer, of club soccer. So I completely agree with Jermaine Jones. I thought the little anecdote he put in there about Jordan Morris and Jordan Morris wanting to stay in Seattle because his family was there and because his girlfriend's there and his mom bought him and his girlfriend a dog. I thought that was pretty revealing and pretty eye opening and just about the standard that's being set. Players just are getting comfortable. But before it was you could come to MLS, but eventually you'd make your way over to Europe or you'd want to make your way over to Europe. Now MLS is investing more money. It's becoming more attractive to want to stay, but at the same time, if you can find a setting to go play abroad that suits you, Werder Bremen's not a bad place to go to in the German Bundesliga if you were Jordan Morris, but he opted to stay and stay in MLS. We'll see how it pans out. He still has time to go abroad and work it out, but Jermaine Jones's point was pretty spot on as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, it's weird because Jermaine Jones's comments aren't, like we said, they're spot on, but it's kind of contradicting to what MLS wants to be, right? They want to be this young and proven league, and that's why Michael Bradley and Josie Altidore and Paul Arriola are signed or got signed to create MLS and build the marketing and all this, and then yet you have Jermaine Jones goes, it's too easy. So how does MLS take those comments? Because they're going to have to address them. There is pressure from the media now a little bit, but especially from the fans saying, like, MLS has to change something because for some reason, if everybody wants to blame MLS more than U.S. Soccer Federation as a whole, and I think that's wrong because the Federation needs to look at how they're doing with this pay-for-play system and the academy. Arman, we had Jared Miklas, the academy director, on our show in July explaining to us exactly what the system was built for. I wonder if that's going to change.
Yeah, it probably will change, at least slightly. Syndergaard had a conference call on Friday and said everything's going to be analyzed in the near future. So, and obviously, when you fail to make a World Cup, changes will be on the horizon. I know. He said after Tuesday's debacle that sweeping change, wholesale changes or sweeping changes don't have to be made, but I would expect things to change, just given the gravity of the situation, especially next summer. When the World Cup fever hits and you start seeing the commercials and the games are starting to come on TV, the pre-tournament friendlies are starting to happen, and there's all this buzz, and U.S. soccer isn't there. I'm pretty sure there will be changes coming just because that's obviously a huge blow. As for where MLS lies in this thing, I mean, MLS needs to do what's in MLS's best interest. I tweeted this, I wrote this last week for American Soccer Now. MLS needs to do what's in their best interest. If that's offering Michael Bradley X amount of money to come over here and it's something he accepts, then that's MLS's business. But the U.S. national team on its own end needs to worry about, and U.S. soccer needs to worry about what's best in the national team's interest. And there's I feel like there's too much overlapping in the sense of too much hand holding between U.S. soccer and MLS, and I feel like it's forced sometimes. And I brought this up in the article I wrote last week. One of the moments that Jurgen Klinsmann was very critical of MLS and U.S. national team players coming back. It was in 2015. I believe it was in the fall. It was maybe 2014, but he made a comment about how MLS players how U.S. national team players were coming back over to MLS, and how it was going to be tougher for Michael Bradley and Clint Dempsey to stay at the level that they were at in Europe, because MLS is not as high of a level, and the competition is not as high. And then the next day, Don Garber kind of threw together a conference call with reporters and was saying how Jurgen Klinsmann's comments were detrimental to MLS. But why is being critical of MLS when you're the U.S. national team coach? Why is that detrimental to the league? Why does the U.S. national team head coach have to have flowery opinions and positive opinions all the time about MLS? Why can't he say it how it is? And that's a part of the problem. It's not the entire problem. It's not the whole issue. It's not why the U.S. missed out on this World Cup, but that is an issue that needs to be addressed, because MLS needs to worry about itself. U.S. national team needs to worry about itself. If it's in the best interest for a U.S. national team head coach to push his players to go to Europe or stay in Europe, then that's fine. And if MLS's best interest is to try to bring those players over, then that's fine. You don't have to see eye to eye on everything and play nice and have to just sound like we're all in this together. No, it's okay to have differing opinions. It's okay for the U.S. national team to want players in Europe and trying themselves out at the highest level, and it's okay for MLS to want to bring them here for marketing purposes, to have fans that want to come out to the stadium, that have young players that young kids can aspire to be like. I get both sides of the picture, but this shouldn't be forced to have to share an opinion about MLS is a great place for players to just have careers. If that's not how the national team coach, whoever that is, feels, then so be it. I mean, like we said, the highest level for club soccer is still in Europe, and that is just a fact. It's not. I mean, it's you can't really argue that.
No, I mean, so I gotta ask you, because you talk about this hand holding between MLS and U.S. soccer, but it's kind of hard not to have that hand holding, because I think they kind of rely on each other. Because look at MLS's TV ratings after the World Cup; they're crucial. They go up. And
yeah, but it's too much. It's too much handling. That example is like that. The example I just gave you is like that to me is eye opening. Like Jurgen Klinsmann was just saying what a lot of people believe or think, that the highest level of soccer is in Europe for club. And if you're a player and you want to aspire to be the best or push yourself, to be the most you can be or get as far as you can in your career, you want to go to Europe and or stay in Europe. There's nothing wrong with saying that. But then for Don Garber to come out the next day and say those comments are not only detrimental to the league, they're wrong, and that's an issue, because now the head coach of the national team has to have pom-poms and cheerlead for MLS, like just because that's what's in your best interest, as a league. Like, the national team head coach should not have to worry about that. His job is not for positive PR for MLS. That's not the national team head coach's job. The national team head coach's job is to field the best national team he can field in the short and the long term. So again, for me, that's eye opening. It was eye opening then, and it's just an anecdote, an example that I think you can take now and see that's an issue. But again, MLS can do what it wants, but it shouldn't force the U.S. soccer and MLS should not have to be should not rely on each other so much. They're both growing at a good rate in terms of fandom, in terms of TV ratings. Well, maybe not MLS so much, but they don't need to be holding each other's hand this much. Like they can just go on their own path. Yes, when it's available, when it's optional, when you can work it out together and do things together,